Every 39 minutes, someone is killed by a drunk driver in the United States.
The most important person in my life was killed by a drunk driver. A person decided to get blackout drunk and drive down Colorado over 90 miles an hour and smashed into her. But then I just wanted to know, like, what happened to her. Like, if, like, she was in her car or if she was, like, on the street. And so, yeah, it was just instantly like, what happened and why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could you feel her pain? Have you ever felt pain from something that was unfair? We can learn some important lessons from her story. And at the end, she shares her personal vision that she's created from her pain.
And what did you do with those feelings? I see you trying to cover up them tears.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate talking about, like, I like talking about her, but I hate this. They brought up just a lot of anger because you don't get to say bye. You don't have, like, an opportunity to ever see that person or hold them again. It's already done. It happened while you slept, kind of thing. So for me, it brought up a lot of anger instantly. I was hurt, obviously, and shocked because it was the first thing in the morning and the last thing I expected to hear. But I was just angry because she was the most important person in my life. So I kind of like kicked a door off of its frame.
Yeah. As I watch her story, I continue to feel her pain. Anger is a secondary emotion. We know that in psychiatry, but I want you to think and dig deeper if you're thinking about your own anger. In this story, there's a lot going on. There's the grief of losing her loved one, but there's also this major injustice. 1.5 million people a year are arrested for a DUI. That means 1 in about 121 people receive a DUI every year. And that's just the people that get caught. And the reality is, we all know someone, or maybe we've been in that situation where we have come home and thought, oh, I probably shouldn't have driven home. But I can tell you what, that woman won't ever get behind the wheel having been drinking. But we don't want it to be just a decision that happens after such pain. And I don't say those things to make anyone feel guilty. I say it because it's what makes this particular type of death so complicated internally as we're trying to grieve. Because there's this grief, there's an injustice, and then there's behaviors and choices. And because it's so common, most of us probably know someone, if we haven't ourselves, crossed that line at some point. And so when we're grieving that, it all gets meshed together. And I talk about this in the Mentally Strong Method and how we have to separate these things, separate the grief from the injustice, from those behaviors and choices. Trying to continue to learn lessons, not only from our own pain, but from other people's pain.
Who are you angry at?
I was angry at the guy who killed her.
Yeah.
Yeah. He drove drunk and he killed the most important person in my life.
And what did you do with that anger? After you kicked the door, those initial physical reactions?
Well, anger is at front. So after
Yeah.
I kicked the door and I realized, like, she's dead, it's not going to take it back. But now I'm just breaking shit in my own house, so I don't want to do that. Instantly knowing, hey, you just broke your own door kind of thing. Like, it was just like, hey, like, this isn't going to fix it. So I just kind of just ended up frantically making calls to people I knew cared about her and were important in my life and, like, loved her too. And I just, like, laid down in my bed and cried. It was like 6:37 a.m. in the morning and the day was already, like, destroyed. So that was kind of how I dealt with it because, yeah, I kicked the door down, but I knew that wasn't the answer. So it was just like, yeah, this is more pain than it is. I'm mad, but I'm sad.
Can you identify the 3 lessons? The first lesson is anger is not the real issue. She talks about anger being a front. I talk about it as being a secondary emotion. But the first lesson here is when we feel anger, what's underneath that? and try to dig deep into that. The second thing is seeking support. I loved how she just logically worked through her anger and was like, I'm ruining my own things. And then she got to the point where she was like, I need somebody. And she just started calling everyone who loved this loved one. That is seeking support. And sometimes we have to reach out for it. And then the third lesson, and literally the hardest, is we have to feel the pain. Remember how she said she just got in her bed and cried? And some of you may feel like you just can't stop crying. And that's okay too. Giving ourselves grace as we process through the complexity of our grief, whether it's mixed with injustice and behaviors like drunk driving, or mixed with other things. And I talk about this all the time. I talk about it in my own grief and controlled grief, that you have to take the time to feel the pain. We don't want to feel the pain. We have this mindset of, I have a headache, I'm going to take something for the headache. I'm not going to feel the pain. But that doesn't work with our emotions. And so that third lesson, although brief as she was talking, she took the time to feel the pain. Anger is just on the surface. Seek support and take the time to feel the pain.
Somebody who's going through it right now that feels like they're alone because of their pain. You're not alone because of your pain. And so that's really what it taught me, is like, number one, there's other people going through it too. So I'm not alone. But then also it really showed me, like, well, what do I want my life to be about? What do I want to live it for? How do I want to live it? What do I want to be? How do I want to be? So that maybe I have a legacy somewhere in the ballpark like hers.
What a powerful personal vision. She took her pain and made a personal vision around that. Could you take your pain and do that? I too have turned my pain into purpose. I'm Cristi Bundukamara. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner with over 20 years of clinical experience. But my real experience comes from my pain, my story. I have lost 3 children over the course of 17 years. I have publicly grieved and sharing my story. I have a book actually called Pain and Purpose. Continue to follow as I interview other people and we learn from each other so that we can be mentally strong.